Morning, world.
Here we are with our faces. This is the first time. Yeah, we tried this, but we didn't
Dude,
record
smile,
last week,
smile,
right?
smile.
This is
Remember to smile.
what the world knows us by, is our smile.
Faces for radio, no doubt.
I'm gonna make coffee real quick, but we have video now, so this will not be as disguised.
Oh, that's true.
Can you still
I
hear
like the
us? though?
sign that.
You can't hear us.
I think I need to probably get some of those big headphones if we're going to do the video deal that go over the top of your head.
They make you look more like a radio star.
Yeah,
Mhm.
no self-respecting podcaster, which I am not. Granted, it uses these little earbud things.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I would think they do, but
You think so?
wait, Rob, by making coffee, what did you mean? Or did you just start
I'll get up in a second. The Keurig, it's a machine that makes coffee.
yeah, I don't have one.
I don't know if you're familiar. Yep.
So how you guys been?
All good. I got to go to a Bravos game last night, which is pretty dang fun.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was the first time that I've seen the Yankees in person. Yeah, and they're awful.
They
I
stink?
just want to put this out there. They're really good, but I hate them.
Oh,
Mm-hmm. And all these New Yorkers took over the stadium. It was so annoying.
wow, that is annoying.
It was super annoying. Yeah.
Interesting.
I wonder if that's how people feel about the Cubs, because a lot of times you watch away games that the Cubs are in, and there are tons and tons of Cubs fans because they're kind of all over the country.
Okay, there were some really fun moments, and I guess I've been to college football games like this where you have the crowd that's split kind of evenly, or closer to even, and the Yankees would start chants to try and take over the stadium. To try and show their force and their power. So they would do the "Let's Go Yankees," and then we would all just boo them really loud, or do the chop, the Braves chop, which is so fun.
They still let you do that?
They still do it, man. I don't know. I think they tried to get rid of it for a while, and everyone's like, "No, man,
No, we're doing it still."
you can't stop America." And then and so then we would just out boo the Yankees just to reclaim our own home,
Mm-hmm.
So it was some fun moments like that. And
That's like a Premier League soccer situation or something.
It added some energy and animosity.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, oh yeah, this is one of those games where man, something goes south, I could see a bench clearing brawl here, which I've never seen in an MLB game live. That would be so fun.
Me neither. Rob, have you ever seen a bench clearing brawl live?
No, I can't say that I have.
Any of the three of us that have, it would be you.
Thank you. No, I've never seen that with my own eyes.
Have you ever been part of a bench clearing brawl?
No, I can't say. Well, no, I don't think so. I don't think that would count. Ooh, I can't say anymore.
That sounded good. I don't think that would count as a great way.
Mm-hmm. So there's that.
A penny for your thoughts.
How are you coming on my autograph baseball? That's any headway there?
Okay, so did I tell you the update with Snit?
No.
That I had this whole super fun convo with him. Told him, hey, one of my best buddies is from Illiopolis. And he was like, oh, snap, dude. You just dropped Illiopolis on me? You're like, yeah, you're from Macon, aren't you? And he was like, yeah, I totally am. And I asked him about the book, and he said he was going to send me a signed copy of it. And I guess there's a dude, the guy who wrote it is a Sports Illustrated writer, and they want to do a follow-up story on it, is the word on the street. So, it might be coming out with that. But I dropped your name, dropped Iliopolis. So
Nice.
it's just a matter of time. We're just buttering him up, dude.
Yep. So he can, like, I don't know. I mean, it's totally up to him on the inscription on the baseball, but it could be like, to Rob, in friendship. Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for your witness. Like, however he wants to sign it, that's totally up to him. Those are just some ideas.
Best friends forever.
Yeah. Whatever.
No, yeah, I'll let him know. I'm sure he'll listen to this. He'll get it.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
It's a matter of time.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well,
nice. What about you guys?
Foray into saying mass for a professional sports team was not as successful or glorious. I had 3 people show up to my Miami Dolphins mass. Now, in their defense, it was a Friday evening. It wasn't a Saturday evening, so there was no Sunday obligation to deal with. But the punter, his first name was Michael. I can't remember his last name. Was very devout and was he like came in and said, "Hey, Father, do you need help with the readings?" And knew all the response. You know how sometimes you do a mass with a small amount of people and people all of a sudden just paralyze on the responses or when to kneel because they're used to being surrounded by people. He knew it all. So he's clearly very faithful. And then I saw him in the game the next day, punting the football. I'm like, hey, that guy is a devout Catholic. That's kind of cool.
Look at that.
Yeah,
Just
that's
punting
great.
that football.
But it was a lot of driving to say mass for 3 people on a Friday night. So I told him I know a few priests that are closer by if there's away teams that need to have the sacred synaxis.
The sacred synaxis. Yeah. Since I've been celebrating mass for the team, the days that I've gone, and I am holding this against the team, that they're 5-2, okay, which is pretty good on the Sundays that I come and celebrate mass. So I'm thinking about like really using the mass as leverage to get what I want so far as all of that goes.
Yeah.
You know, get like a little major league situation like, hey, if you want to come to mass, you're going to lose and you're going to hit terrible and you're probably going to lose your family. So come to mass.
Jeez.
Just really subtle stuff like that, you know?
Yeah, kind of under the radar. Because it's
Yeah,
great
that's
because
theology,
it uses the mass both as like a kind of superstitious amulet for winning baseball games, which is really cool. And then also it manipulates people's free will by withholding that grace from them.
Yeah. It's
really
a pretty good setup. Feel pretty good about it.
Oh man.
Hey, so how is it having students back on campus?
It's great. My goodness.
Yeah.
The coffee shop is open.
Nice.
We had great traffic in there yesterday. Chapel's still getting worked on, but there's progress being made every day. We had some stars go up on the ceiling yesterday. This is exciting.
Now, is the chapel renovation, are y'all still using it as you're working on it?
No, we have a little temporary chapel in the half of the lounge that's not being used for the coffee shop. So,
okay, yeah.
Tell me, I'm curious of this, and I know we got a little bit of a time crunch this morning, but what's the thing that like you're most excited for with the chapel, or like what's the thing itself in the chapel that you think will have the biggest impact on like a student coming in? Any thoughts? And you can't say Jesus in the Eucharist.
I think to me, the cohesion and order and noble beauty of the space is going to be the thing that is most first impression wise capturing. I don't think any one piece of art or architecture is going to wow you when you walk in. Like say if you walked into Marytown, the dome and the monstrance or something, like the thing that your eye first goes to. But even
I forgot about Marytown.
Even in Marytown,
I missed that chapel.
The totality of the place, the columns and the ceiling.
Yeah.
I mean, the ceiling is unbelievable in Marytown, but there's nothing like that in this chapel. Maybe besides the crucifix, which I think is very beautiful. It hasn't arrived yet, but I've seen pictures. It was hand carved in Germany. And it's it took me some convincing from the architect who was a DMAC Liturgical Institute protege, Michael Rea of Studio IO. I'll give them a free shout out. Oh, you're wearing the Liturgical Institute shirt.
Dude, reppin'.
Yeah.
I guess it's backwards. Yeah.
No,
it looks backwards.
It's forwards to us.
I can read it.
I think it's backwards. I think the reason you are mirrored yourself is because it's weird if it's not. Like if you raise your hand, you know what I mean? Like you see, it makes sense to you in your brain.
Is the most old people technology thing.
But then you raise both your hands. Wait, is this thing on? The crucifix is of the crucified Christ, but his eyes are open. So his side is pierced. It's post-death, but his eyes are open, and he's kind of in a more priestly stance. His arms are straight out rather than like hanging, like he's really dead. Have you ever seen the crucifix where Jesus is wearing vestments? It's like the crucifix of the high priest. It's the same thing. He's crucified, but he is alive, and his arms are straight out, and he's in this kind of very in control. He is offering himself as a sacrifice. He's not like being crucified in the passive sense. He's offering himself as a sacrifice. So that's the emphasis artistically there. It's not meant to be a piece of art that represents a historical reality as much as a liturgical or eschatological reality. That, like in Revelation, the Lamb is standing as though slain in the midst of the four living creatures and the elders and the angels singing holy, 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 and all that stuff, and the people casting their crowns. That's the vision for what he wanted to build. And I was thinking in my head, well, people are expecting a crucifix, and that's going to like take some, that looks like a resurrexifix, which is what we had.
I was going to say, what's the difference between what you're describing and a resurrexifix?
That the resurrexifix is also kind of reducing the thing to a historical reality. In other words, but it's a different historical reality, trying to represent the resurrection rather than the eschatological reality of what's happening at the Mass, which is that the risen Christ is representing the eternal sacrifice of the cross. He's alive, but he's dying in the church, in the Eucharist, in the sacraments, until all things are made new, until all things are restored in Christ. That the grace of the sacraments flows from his living wounds.
Yeah, I think it's Eucharistic prayer too. Well, I'm sure they all mention it to some extent, but it's always striking to me that a holy and living sacrifice, like that's the Lamb as though slain, who's dead but alive, and offering it up as a sacrifice all at once. This holy living sacrifice. Yeah.
So probably the most famous instance of this is the San Damiano cross, the one that spoke to St. Francis. His eyes are huge and they're way open. They're looking right at you. And the blood is splurting out of his side onto all of these people. And the angels are catching it in cups and stuff. So that's from the Middle Ages. It's not if you're thinking like, oh, that's a resurrexifix like from the 1970s, it's not a new idea. It's a revival of, and most churches in the like Constantinian, like you look at Hagia Sophia, there's not a big dead Christ in the sanctuary. It's the Pantocrator, it's the living risen Jesus. So it took me some convincing, like I said, or took him some convincing of me. And I asked some people that I trust, including like Focus missionaries and others, like, do you get this? Does this make sense? So I think that's probably the thing that will be also very striking. As I was looking at the drawings and stuff, I was trying to imagine being an 18-year-old and praying for 4 years in front of this crucifix, and like, what impression would this make on me, and who would Jesus be in my mind and heart after praying in this chapel? Because that's what happened at the U of I chapel. That's the place I prayed the most in a very formative time. And it forms your image of God.
Yeah, this is making me think a lot of the JP2 chapel and some of my favorite elements of that, and I guess how grateful of it I was. I mean, we got to pray in there for 4 years, something like that, a long time.
Yeah.
that chapel was very formative.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here's a question. Well, I'll zing it over to you, Rob. If you could think of a most formative piece of art, maybe in the JP2 chapel or just in general, that you've prayed with, that's kind of shaped your heart and your spirituality, is there one in particular that stands out above the rest?
That's a good question. I mean, I would say the JP2 chapel is what formed me the most. And what comes to mind initially was just had never, and it was just so cool because obviously Barron talked about it all the time, like the thinking and everything and what he was excited about for it. But then also knowing DMAC and kind of his involvement in it. And, but that was just such a cool example to me of and this isn't the technical language. Maybe you guys could fill in here of what I'm trying to say. But there was like so much like personality in that chapel of, like, yeah, just getting to hear about like why each saint was chosen and like where they were placed and what was exciting about it. And like little things, like I love that in that chapel, the Mother Teresa stained glass, it still shows that her toe is like, do you remember that? Like her toe is like a little bit misformed, like it was in real life. And I remember DMAC talking about that of, that's something they kind of chose to leave in, even though most of the time, like art like that would have them more in the heavenly realm. So it's not a common thing, but kind of like why it was decided. Or I think it's the St. Catherine Drexel window that they have the little mouse in, which is like the artist's signature for the windows. Apparently they put those in whenever they do windows like that, they'll put it somewhere. So there's this little mouse like that kind of fits into the whole piece with the Drexel window, but that was like the artist signing it, which I thought was really cool. So that was just the example of kind of the overall effect of like, hey, there's like personality, there's people designing this chapel that come from a background and have preferences and everything, but it's oriented in a way to properly worship the living God. And I remember that too, of like Barron always saying like he wanted that to form seminarians' hearts and minds for 200 years, and hopefully it will continue to do so. So I don't have the exact wording for it, and more so than just one thing, it was the process of first exposure of like how something like that is made, at least in hearing about it. But then realizing like, wow, this is something that is like for God as well. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. That chapel's insane, dude. It gets me so pumped being able to think about it. Right. It's the embodiment of the non-competitive nature of God. So it's like all of these other people and colors and things and art and windows and, columns and all these different things. And yet it doesn't take away from like Christ truly present there, but it actually all orients and integrates towards Jesus and the altar and that giant, beautiful altar and the ambo that matches to it. And, the number of hours sitting in between JP2 and Our Lady of Guadalupe, their kind of conversation, their looks of love to one another. And you're just like in the middle of it, praying towards Christ. And so you have all these people around you praying for you, with you, as you're praying towards Jesus. And you're like, dude, this feels like kind of heavenly, like the communion of saints. You're going in there in tough times and having all of these saints that you knew their personal stories and like even the little details around each of the windows. They all helped me to know that person and to know their story much better. So it actually made me more, I don't know what you would call it, literate in their own Christian history. So you could look at that window and it would remind you of like all the great things that God did in and through them. And it was all together, unified as one. So like the Catherine Drexel piece, the little moment that they depicted, mirrors the Theresian moment in front of the same Pope, in front of
Leo the 13th and both.
Leo the 13th. Yeah, I guess it's probably the 1890s, probably both of them, or somewhere around there. Yeah, and then having like saints from the whole tradition, from Saint Paul. Yeah, having
Aquinas.
Who were the two Aquinas? Who were the two brothers?
Cyril and
Methodius. Dude, just these mysterious bearded men over there looking like ballers. Oh my gosh. That window is brilliant. All the way up to Gianna Molla. Is that right? Was she in there? Or who am I thinking of? Yeah.
Frassati was up in like the front four.
Frassati.
Too. Yeah.
He's so beautiful, man. And no one...
Wasn't there, speaking of personality, wasn't there somebody who wanted to not have the Pope? Oh no, I'm mixing that up with like his holy card. Where his pipe, that famous photo of him on the mountain. What's the story behind that? Somebody wanted to take the pipe out because it was like it reflected badly on him that he was smoking, but they're like, no, that's what he did. He smoked pipes.
He smoked pipes. That's what he did.
So we're putting that in his photo. They wanted to like airbrush it out.
Yeah, I think in the actual photo he has it in his mouth and they put it in his pocket.
Oh,
in the stained glass. Yeah.
In the stained glass, he doesn't have it in his mouth?
I'm pretty sure it's in his pocket.
For some reason, I think that's right, too. Yeah.
Dude, can you remember how insanely beautiful that JP2 painting was?
Yes. That's what I want to also replicate. Because our Newman Center is named after St. John Paul II. I wanted to replicate that. It's Will St. John is the artist that painted it. Beautiful, beautiful painting. And a beautiful frame it's in, too. Anyway, what's cool about that chapel, too, is that you walk into any of the other chapels at Mundelein, like the Deacon Chapel, the Jesuit Chapel, the even the main chapel, and you're like, how did anyone build this? They're all just old enough that you think, oh, everybody just forgot how to do that. So the only ones we have that look like this are old. And just seeing something new that looks like that has these saints. Do you ever remember in the Deacon Chapel just looking up at the windows and being like, I don't even know what saints those are. Who chose them? But seeing that process of like these saints that mean so much to our generation being chosen, and that's why it makes you, I'm sure that has been a piece that inspired me, that made me think this is possible to actually make a beautiful chapel.
Yeah.
Here. Excuse me.
That's awesome. What would you say to the question, Mike? Like, if there was one thing, what would it be?
I think the first thing that comes to mind is the Pietà. And I guess having said that, I need to give the caveat, I've never actually seen it in person, but lots of different representations of it. And I guess the Pietà has been very, very formative for me and very, very helpful. Having Mama Mary hold Christ and then like you being the person of Jesus in prayer, it's given me a lot of strength and a lot of comfort. And there's like obviously there's a lot going on there with that work of art, but I think that, and then maybe the Marytown Chapel as well, just as a whole. If I were to look at that chapel as a single piece of art, I never seen anything like that coming from Georgia and then coming into Marytown. It like blew my brains out of my head, man. Like, what is happening in this chapel? Dude, it's very busy, but also integrated and ordered towards the Blessed Sacrament in a really, really powerful way. Very colorful. It's just impossible to go in that chapel and not feel like you're not in heaven, surrounded by the angels and saints, and that big epic gold dome and the blue background. It's like it's beautiful. It's beautiful. So I guess Pietà and Marytown Chapel. What about you, Connor?
So the question was not what in the JP2 chapel affected you the most, but what work of art is the most, deeply affective?
We'll leave
Just
it
go with
up
what
to
your
you.
heart feels.
Yeah, whatever feels good.
I don't know. What was your answer again, Rob?
You can't cheat.
Hey, yeah. Whoa.
You're
yeah,
just like
you answered the
blatantly
question.
looking at the next guy's paper.
We'll answer the question or ask the questions here, okay?
We will ask the questions here. Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, what have I prayed the most in front of it? Marytown is one of them. I mean, from the time I was in college all the way through seminary, I prayed in there a lot and had a lot of meaningful encounters with God in that building. Dude, it's crazy. We were just up there last week, actually, with the staff and the missionaries doing a little retreat day. We said Mass in the side chapel, the Mother of Sorrows chapel, and it's powerful. God is in that place, man. In terms of like a work of art, I've never had the Dostoevsky moment of like seeing the dead Christ in a painting and having an epileptic seizure or anything. I haven't had something arrest me that much, but yeah. I remember I went in Omaha. I went to the art museum there, and they had just a few things from like the medieval time. And one of them was an altarpiece, a really simple old altarpiece with the crucified Christ, and of that kind of medieval, like the San Damiano, angels catching the blood coming out of Jesus's wounds. And I just thought, it's from like 1100 or something. And I thought about the priests who looked at this as they celebrated Mass, in the 11 or 1200s. And I felt very connected to them. I was a seminarian at the time, but being called to the priesthood, connected to these men I will never meet, no idea who they are, but this same mystery is being celebrated even to today. And it wasn't a particularly beautiful altarpiece or anything. It was just an altarpiece, but it made, same thing happened to me when I went to the Holy Land, to the Holy Sepulchre. I thought, this is not particularly like, oh man, I feel so connected to the risen Jesus because I'm in the place where he rose from the dead. It's very covered over in, weird stuff. And you hear chants from all the different Armenians and Orthodox. And, but what I did feel connection to was all the pilgrims that came here for hundreds and hundreds of years. It was like St. Francis of Assisi came here. St. Ignatius Loyola came here. And like, maybe we're in this spot. This building's been here since 12 or 1300 or whatever, parts of this building. That's another thing that art and tradition can do, is it can connect you across the ages, which is
that
beautiful.
Is cool.
Notre Dame Cathedral will be another one. I celebrated Mass there.
Oh, cool.
Like, how did people make this? I just don't. It blows my brains out of the back of my head, as Mike so eloquently put it.
Yeah, dude. I'd say that. Yeah.
Well,
this is no. Go on.
Yeah, it's just I haven't had a moment of just being like totally taken by something, or talking to Dostoevsky moment, but it is interesting the effect like it can have. I remember when we were at Le Louvre, and we were walking through like part of the Christian section, and there's so much like some of them, God, they're just so like magnificent and big paintings. And like I remember that was like one of the experiences. You get this in Rome too, but there's like a lot of nudity in them, and you're like, but this isn't pornographic either. I remember kind of like the first time I was exposed to art like that, like of that caliber, to say like there's something like just strange here that is like captivating but not possessive, and like it's impacting you in this particular way. I remember that painting of, I think it's Susanna, the big one in the Louvre, and Yeah, it's just it does something to you, certainly. So I mean, there's instances of it, but I guess I can't think of like one moment that just was it necessarily either.
Yeah.
Well, I got to peace out, guys. Pretty soon here.
Oh yeah,
got it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The only one that comes to mind in terms of a singular moment was going to listen to Verdi's Requiem Mass played by the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, and it's just one that brings you to tears. It's like the embodiment of humanity crying to divinity for his mercy. And to see it done by 200 people with voice and creation knit in a way that it's making sound that's all in harmony together. It is nuts, dude. It's such a beautiful piece. So it's a different type of art, but that's the closest moment or event that I've had that was arresting. But Connor, I know you got to go, man.
It's good to see you guys. Are we doing Clubhouse tomorrow? Should we decide?
I say no.
Yeah.
I do say we get back. Let's maybe get this up with the video thing. And
if you're just listening to the audio, Father Rob just has his hand up.
Right. Well, I thought we were doing this when we spoke now.
You got the hand up.
Hot Mike has something to say. I wonder when we send this
I say we look for a different forum and maybe start kicking around some ideas for the homily prep.
Agreed.
All right. No Clubhouse.
All right. Later, skaters.
See ya.
Later, dudes.